Alright, what I've done so far is I set the blade in vinegar out here on the balcony, and then last night I came out to check on it and I knocked the glass over. But it wasn't doing much to knock off the rust, so I wire brushed it a little bit to get the most of the surface stuff, but this is really what I'm using. It's these like sanding blocks, and I'm just doing that. But you can see, let's look at the pitting. It definitely has some pitting going on. But there's still definitely usable blade in here. See deep little pits right there. That's what I'm trying to get down to. Is you can feel it too. The little pits. If you do this, if you ever use one of these, make sure you got not just safety glasses, but like a face shield on, because little pieces of it were flying. Oh, I got safety glass on, but little pieces were flying and hit me in the face. If you had a bench grinder, this would be something you could use a wire wheel on. But I'm just going to use sandpaper and work on the blade, and then I'm going to think about what I'm going to do with this. It's usable right now. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not loose. It's just, I might just, we got cracks and everything right here. I might replace it later, but this is going to be my beater. You want to throw something into the dirt, here you go. You want to pry on something you shouldn't be prying on, here you go. Anyways, that's my progress so far. I'm just going to sit here and manually work on these, smoothing these pits out. I'm not going to take it to a bench grinder because it takes off too much too fast. And then once I get done with that, I'm going to blue it. So there you go. That's the progress on the knife that was almost buried underwater. Hello and welcome to my channel. Alright, so I found out that at this point of my process, this is the best thing to use. It's kind of like a bench grinder, but because this is variable speed, I'm going no faster than 3 on this thing. Right now I have it set on 2, I believe, or 1. You go slow, that's normal. If we run into an area that needs a lot of stuff removed, that's as fast as I'm going to go on this. This is the normal removal process. What I'm trying to do is, if you've noticed, the grain is going to be like this. And when you're grinding, you have to know how your rotation is going so it doesn't throw the dust up at you. But this one rotates like that. So I have to position the tool, in the middle. You may not be able to see all this that well. Let me turn this headlamp on. See, I can go like this. I'm just trying to follow the bevels. And it's already almost sharpening it. But I was really just trying to knock off most of the rust. See, right up here I got a lot. I don't know if you can see the dust flying on. Because before, when I put it in vinegar, all I did, you could see where it went up to the vinegar bath right here. but it wasn't really getting down to, this is really severely pitted. So I took a wire brush attachment on this, and I started wire brushing, just knocking most of that stuff off. It still wasn't doing it, so I went to that sandpaper block, you know. That was kind of doing it, but it was slow and tedious, you know. And then I finally, ding, a little light bulb came on in my head and said, you know, you've got a machine that can do this a lot faster for you. Because I've got a bench grinder, but the problem with the bench grinder is you have to put the tool up to the bench grinder. With this, with the rotary tool, you can put this up to your face where you can see it, where I can see it, you know, so I'm blind as a bat. And then I can see exactly what I'm doing. I can control the pressure, how much material I'm taking off. And yeah, that's the way to do it on a severely pitted one, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. Now up here, I'm just going to take a file, a jeweler's file, and go in there and fix those. But for all the other surface areas, you know, like I said, you just get in there and I'll worry about making the grain equal and all that other stuff later on, towards the end. Right now I just want to knock off the rust, get down to the bare metal. Look at the moon craters. So you can only get so far. I can't get all the way up in there. But it works really well on this. Let me see if I can focus this for you. Ooh, it's stuck at that. That wasn't a quick shut off. See the surface of the moon, but it's a lot smoother. Now it's smooth. Before it was really rough. It felt worse than this on this, you know, so it's smoothing it out. But yeah, there's some definite, you know, to get down to that, to polish that, I'm gonna have to remove all this other metal, and it's not gonna be that obvious if you just kind of like bevel it and stuff. I'm not gonna get all of it out. I really don't care about that, you know. It's got to have some character to it, and it does now. And I may leave the handle like this, man. Really. I might fix it a little bit, but I mean, I'll save that for later, I think, because with this knife, it's 1980. I was still in the service. I believe I got this when I was over in England at the base exchange, or what do we call it? BX. In the Army they call it the PX, post exchange, but in the Air Force we have bases. So it was a BX, and yeah, the sheath is no good, but the thing I like about it is it fits my hand real well. The weight and the balance of it is very good, and I like the cross guard. I like everything about this knife. Yeah, I always knew this is not for sawing wood. You know, when I got it, I'm in the Air Force. You know, or was in the Air Force, so I know what this knife is for. I know what it is, and back then, I'd never seen anybody baton wood, not once. I've seen people make notches, you know, where you just tap it like that, but never turned it into an axe, you know. But this is I found an excellent use for it already. The cat food. Straightening their food up and putting it in the right position. See there, over there, the cat food. They move it around a lot, especially if I have a plate, you know, instead of a bowl. And yeah, what are you going to do? Well, you can, I'm not going to use my hands, to scrape it up or to move around, but this is the right length. That's another thing, it's 5 inches. I had a K-bar also, and I've always liked the feel and the balance of this one better. Now, another thing I noticed while sharpening this and everything, this false edge is actually sharper than this edge just because of the behind the edge thickness on it. If you can look at this bevel right here, not false edge, it's nothing false about this one. This fucker's sharp. But this is more of a obtuse, slope and everything, and comes down to a point. But yeah, it's gonna turn out fine. Now, after I've done all this, after I straighten this out, get this off of here. After I finish, straighten this out, I'm gonna stick it in a jar where it goes all the way to this part of the tang with the vinegar, and it'll give it a vinegar bath to keep it from looking super shiny. Get back over here. What are you looking at the cat food for? And why are you at 2x? I wonder if it'll let me. It won't let me go macro. I've got some macro pictures of it, but let's see how much we can zoom in from here. Let me turn this thing off my head. This is better than a macro, man. You can really get in there and see that. But you can see a lot of times when you're polishing, when you're sanding and everything, you're just polishing the rust. You're not really getting down to the metal. It takes a while before you can get to the surface metal. You can see it eroded the edge quite a bit. See, here's another example of that, where, I'm basically just polishing the crap out of it, but not really. I want to see the individual pits of the moon, and then I know I'm where I need to be. See, like this is okay. But this right here, there's a lot of black in between there. Like I said, I'm not going to try to make this. It'd be easy to take this to the belt sander or a grinder and just, But because it has character, history, and I'm not going to have that Jeep pretty soon. It has a connection with the Jeep. It has a connection with me being in the military. There's a lot of connections with this knife. And I thought I had lost it. I told you I found it. I found that it was in the wet state and everything. And I thought I brought it in here because, I didn't think I would leave it back in the Jeep where it was still getting wet. But I guess my thought process must have been at that time, it's already messed up. It's not going to hurt it any worse to leave it in here, until I can get to it. Well, yeah, it could. It could continue to make it worse. But, it turned out all right. It's going to turn out great. And eventually, I'll polish this up. I might, completely restack it, the leather and everything. But the next step is going to be either leave it black like this, or I'm gonna polish this also. Probably with the Dremel, just to get back to the leather color. I think I may have spray painted this handle black, and that might have stopped some of that. I don't know. Anyways, I'm having a lot of fun with this, and I like it. So now I've got 3 of these. I've got one here real close by, but this is the one that I purchased before Ontario went out of business. I think this one's 211. Man, this one here, you can tell it has some chunks up here. They didn't stamp it completely, centered, but I guess if you're trying to spell Ontario they made it there. Yeah, it's a long way to go on that. They had to crowd it in that space. If it's off just a little bit, which is, this one was probably off to the left a little bit, or something happened when they ground that. But anyways, yeah, that's all it takes, really. You just grind this down a little bit. You don't want to take too much because you're going to have to repaint it, when you put your leather stack. But I think you could probably just vary the length of these if you ground that off too much. And then once you get it restacked, you just pin it back. It's not hard to do. I've seen it. I've watched Forge and Fire before. They had to make a stacked leather handle, and they just had these square chunks of leather that they just stacked in there, and they put all the stuff on, and then they went to a bench grinder, sander, you know, bench sander and everything, sanding belt or something, and just shaped it. So yeah, I should do it like this, you know, like, all right, I'm all finished with it. What do you think? Wow, man, that looks good. How'd you parkerize it? Oh, that's a secret. How'd you fix that? Yeah, that's what it was afterwards. After all that rust and everything was there, I'd have to hide this. You know, you couldn't quite see you could see the Ontario, but you couldn't quite see the date. You know, just fool people. Yeah, look how good of that restoration I did. What happened to those pits and everything? What about that broken handle? No, I restacked that. I just didn't bother to show you guys. But yeah, here's my amateur restacking leather job here I did. What do you think? Pretty good? You know, I wouldn't do that to you guys. I'd do it as a joke, but I'd fess up to it. I wouldn't just, you know, before the video was over, I'd say no, you know, actually, I'm not that good at knife restoration. But I am good at pulling jokes. So anyways, there you go. I'm going to continue on this. I was going to do a, you know, step-by-step videotape and everything, but last night when I went out to check on this, like I said, it's a small balcony. I tipped the vinegar over onto the table, and it spilled down onto the ground, and it smelled like piss and vinegar out there, although I haven't been pissing. But it smelled pretty bad out there, and well, you know, vinegar's not that bad smell to me, but still, that part of the process, and it was, you know, in that little jar that I had, it was only going halfway anyway. I just was trying to test to see how well leaving it soaking in vinegar does against rust, and it had been in there for about like 6-7 hours, and it had taken some off, you know. I mean, you could see it was doing its work, but it was going to take a while. This is a much faster method, and you have more control over it. So I'm repeating myself, and I have to continue to work on this. This is a flashlight I was using on my head, the Orcos TS10. Why was I using that? Because it was in my pocket. I had another one, an Olight. You know, I got this too, but this is kind of big. You know, it's a TD03 that I bought, but I still haven't found the one that I lost in here. But that was the replacement one. And yeah, I told you, I carry a lot of flashlights. I carry a lot of knives. This works very well on your head, you know, for light also. But there you go. So I'm not sponsored by anything or anyone. I'm just here doing all this. Now I do have generous people that give me knives and send me knives in. Neither one of these, I purchased both of these right here. This one in probably 1980, and this one here recently. Even though it says 2011, I know I got it, I think it was in 2020 or something like that, so 2000, I don't know. Maybe it was before the crandemic happened. Cranberry-demic. But anyways, there you go. Yeah. I just sit out on my back porch back there, and I was sanding away, but now I'm just going to work on it in here, and then I'll just sit out there with a file and do that. Yeah. I did, initially I was trying to knock the rust and everything off with another knife, a Rough Rider knife I had out there, and even the rust was hardened. It was scraping. It was like equal hardness Rockwell. The rust was the same Rockwell as the knife that I was using, because it was scraping off of it. It wasn't knocking it off. Anyways, there you go. I wish you would shut up and stop it and let people go. Okay. Sorry. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.